Hello survivors, Priam here, and today I'd like to present the second edition of my hero development guide. I'll put the link in the description below, but it's basically the same as before. Only difference now is I've included a table which has the different editions. First edition is still available for download if you want to compare and contrast between the first and second edition. So jumping right into the guide, the second edition is now 55 pages long. I've added a total of 12 pages, which include the 4 new SX heroes, which were released at the end of the first season of Eden last month. The backbone structure of the guide remains the same for the most part. All of the relevant sections and charts have been updated to reflect the new heroes. In addition, I've added 2 new sections as well, battle dynamics and skill priority. I won't go through everything since it's mostly the same, but I would like to touch on a few changes. So jumping straight into the attributes section, one of the new SX heroes, Death Rider, has a new attribute, Demolition Power, as part of his Awaken skill, which gives plus 300 Demolition Power, which is the same as Destruction. This comes in handy for Eden players, given that the durability for capitals and gates are extremely high. Then scrolling down through the skills, all this is updated as well. These charts are all updated to reflect the new heroes. These abilities list the new heroes as well. In addition, for Recover, I've included this line now, which are heroes that prevent recover. And then we get to battle dynamics, which is one of the new sections I've added. This isn't fully done yet. This is just here just to give you a glimpse of what if in the future, kind of. I'll read this. So if you've ever played a trading card game, TCG, like Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, or Yu-Gi-Oh!, you'll recognize that the battles in this game follow a similar format. Battles are move-based, going through various phases each turn. The game doesn't explicitly state the various phases of each turn, but essentially you have the following. Pre-battle phase, prep and status skills trigger. Battle phase 1, troop deal basic damage. Battle phase 2, combat skills trigger. Post-battle phase, passive, prep, and status skills trigger. Why does this matter? For now, it's just something to keep in mind. However, if you've been following the trend of combat skills, you can see skills are becoming more and more multi-layered. There's only so many skills and abilities they can introduce before overwhelming players. The only way to add another dimension to the RNG factor is by triggering skills during different phases, thereby altering the sequence of actions and reactions. As I mentioned previously, without access to the developer code behind the war engine, this is all just conjecture. If and when the game expands on this in the future, I'll cover it in depth at that time. This will ultimately become the flow analysis of a battle, which eventually leads to predictive solutions. This mindset carries throughout the gaming world, not just limited to TCGs. It can be seen in chess or even in the fighting world, where one deciding factor, one move at the right time, determines who wins and loses. Everyone plays to the best of their ability to win. However, good players calculate the risk and reward to limit losses while maximizing gains. And then master level players have the foresight and ability to see the end game. Will this game become that complicated? Can it? I don't know. But for now, the only thing you need to understand is during each turn, actions occur in sequence. Each action causes a reaction, leading to a compounding effect. In the following section of the hero analysis, I've added little tidbits of information labeled food for thought, just to stimulate your mind as you're reading this guide. So jumping into the hero analysis section, this page is the same as before. I've added the 4 new SX heroes as well as their analysis, and I've added this blue header, food for thought. Just little, something to stimulate your mind as you're reading the what if scenarios. If the game does get complicated to the point where little things like this matter, then it's going to be interesting to see. Just a note, not every hero has food for thought. Only some heroes have it. The new heroes, most of them do have it. Most of the SX heroes have it as well. It's not entirely new content. Some of the previous analysis from the first edition, I just tacked on the label food for thought onto them. Other heroes, I made completely new content. Just little things to think about that I didn't include in the first edition. So going through this, you can see food for thought on some heroes. Some don't have them. Some are self-explanatory. going through the heroes, one thing I want to bring your attention to is the Inquisitor. You may recall from the first edition, or if you don't recall, you can actually go download the first edition to see, I mentioned the Inquisitor and Executioner combo, which their final skills give a 2-round suppression, which at that time I mentioned was overpowered because that seemed too good to be true. Well, it is, because in one of the recent patches, sometime in the last 7 weeks basically, the developers have changed the wording of the final skills of the Inquisitor to only last for 2 turns. So that 2-round suppression no longer exists, it's only 2 turns now. Then skipping past most of these skills, I want to go to the next section to draw your attention to is skill priority. Seasonal heroes are hard enough to get, let alone to get duplicate medals to unlock their skills. Most people won't use nor work on their seasonal heroes until they have at least 2 duplicates to unlock skill 6, Awaken, and skill 8. Skill 7 will almost always be your last skill to unlock. Positioning will determine if you unlock skill 6 or 8 first. A maxed out orange hero will almost always beat a partially unlocked seasonal hero. Only a few awakened seasonal heroes with exceptional 8th skills will overcome a maxed out orange. Skill priority is dependent on the hero and its respective position in your APC. Front row, you should prioritize skill 6 because this acts as your primary meat shield, tank, and thus should have as many troops as possible to avoid losing morale. Middle row should prioritize skill 6 or 8 depending on the hero. This is your secondary meat shield and secondary damage dealer. Back row should prioritize skill 8. This is your primary damage dealer, which needs to be protected in the rear. There are exceptions, of course, where front row heroes have 8th skills that are so good they are worth unlocking first, but being placed in the middle to use your skill. Your APC should have at least 2 awakened heroes, otherwise you will likely lose morale and end the battle early. Prioritizing your skills means you're not maxing out, but I understand this is an important aspect on your journey to maxing out. This is a standalone chart as it goes against the prerogative of this guide of maxing out and looks different from the rest, focusing on skill 6, 8, and 7. For your consideration, here's my last reference chart, Hero Skill Priorities. When I released the first edition of my hero guide, I said the combat skills reference chart would be the most used chart. Following the release of this edition of the hero guide, I think the skill priorities will be the second most used chart in my guide. I think most of you will like this. This tells you what the role of the hero is, what positioning it should be in, and then whether or not you should prioritize your first skill to awaken or the 8th skill to unlock. And your 3rd skill to unlock will always be skill 7. Lastly, in hero synergy, quite a few people asked about early heroes for the early game, so I added a few combos for that. Also added some of the newer SX hero combos as well, and you can just go through them. And that's pretty much it. I hope you all enjoy the second edition of my hero guide and continue to find this useful as reference material. This isn't something I'll be updating that often. It's primarily as new heroes are released, I'll update another edition of the hero guide. So the next one will most likely come out early next year, following the conclusion of the second season of Eden, and that's when the 4 new SX heroes will come out. So until then, I wish you all the best in discovering your best APC combos.